It's now time for Party Chat Sports.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Welcome back, everybody, to Party Chat Sports. We got 3/4 of the Party Chat Sports crew here with us. We are recovered from the draft weekend that was here in Detroit. By the way, madness. Let's just lead off with that. Cam and I were in a crowd of 250,000 people. That is insane. And it definitely felt like that. If
a lot of
you haven't
people
already, go check out our TikToks because we've got a couple TikToks from the draft, and I know we're going to be putting more out at some point. But welcome into our draft recap episode, essentially, here at Party Chat Sports. We're going to recap our draft classes for our teams, talk about some draft classes we like, maybe didn't like so much, and let's get right into it. Let's, one of you guys take the lead and just discuss either the Cowboys or Steelers draft class.
I can jump in as the
on?
certified. Yeah. Let me just say this. I think the vibe for the episode is going to be like doing our 3 favorite classes, 3 least favorite, as well as our own teams. But my favorite class just so happens to be my own team. And actually a lot of pundits agree. I'm not just being a homer today, even though I'm a homer every day. A lot of actual and analytical people agree that the Steelers were number 1. So top to bottom, let's start talking about it. And I think one big takeaway in general was – obviously, the 6 quarterbacks going top 12, which was crazy. A lot of good players.
On that subject, speaking of winners, Caleb Gill is a freaking winner. All right, I'm not one that usually likes patting myself on the back. Right here, I'm going to, because the whole "you laughed at me" from Family Guy meme, and the dude with his barrels gets in the car. That was like, there's no way that many quarterbacks could go in the top 10. And I was sweating it. And then the Falcons did the dumbest thing of the entire draft. And that's when I'm like, all right, we're back, baby. We're back. And that was a real good moment when that 5th quarterback was taken in the top 10. For many reasons.
You may have been right. The
fifth one was JJ at 10. It's crazy. They literally made a trade up to 10 from 11 just to make your prediction right.
Free money.
Anyways,
sorry, quarterbacks were on the subject, and I just needed to interfere there.
Yeah. You were correct. It doesn't mean it was the right thing for the NFL to do, but it happened nonetheless.
I never said it was going to be the right thing. I just said it was going to be the thing.
That's fine. You said it, so that you get your flowers. But what that did was push a lot of really good football players down the board for the rest of us to draft from. So I think that led to, obviously, one of the biggest steals of the draft, Troy Fountainu, tackle, Washington there, going to be a stud. Whether he plays left tackle or right tackle with Broderick Jones, we have 2 left tackles. One of them is going to have to play right tackle. So it is what it is, but it doesn't matter. Guy's a dog, and really the top 2 picks, Fountainu and then Zach Frazier, trenches are shirt up. Offensive line and defensive line, really, they're never the flashy picks. It's like, we went O-line in this year's draft, but that's what maturing means. That's what growing up in life means, is being happy with the offensive lineman drafted in the first round. I remember years back we had a guy, David DeCastro. I was like, boring. We went with a guard. He turned out to be pretty darn good. So it's going to build the foundation for years to come on that O-line, along with Mason McCormick in the 4th, who could be a future starter on the line as well, because we got a couple of guard contracts coming up. So, yeah, just an absolute couple of studs in the offensive line. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, fantasy value going up. Those guys are going to have a field day. If Fields ends up being the quarterback, I think it's going to be a field day on the rushing side of the ball. And if Russ is the quarterback, they're a good pass protector. So I really love those picks. Roman Wilson in the third, Drew was giving me some crap because he said I flipped on this pick. I just was not happy with taking Roman Wilson if it was at 51. I feel like that would have been a super reach. But
Convenient.
at 84, I think, or at 81 or whenever we took him, whatever, it's fine. It's fine because whenever we took him in the third, it fits. I would have liked an outside receiver because we still don't have one of those. But if the ultimate plan is to guy like Cortland Sutton or something, then that makes it all make sense and it works. And what's that?
I've seen DK Metcalf as a rumor.
I think that would be.
AB said. I think that's because AB said the same number, but then he said it's not a Bronco. I don't know.
That would be nuts.
I saw that one.
That would be nuts. That would make my brain explode. That'd be crazy if it happened live. Get a live reaction. It's not going to though. The Omar was also what he would say if there were trades in the works. So regardless, it's a fine pick. And then Peyton Wilson, arguably the best off-ball linebacker in the draft. He fell because he has no ACL. But if you have no ACL, that just means you got no ACL to tear, in my mind. So he did all that at NC State with no ACL anyway. And Hines Ward didn't have an ACL. So that's really not an issue. We got arguably linebacker number 1 who runs like a 4.4, 6'3". Just throw that on this already stacked defense. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And then Logan Lee, I don't really care for that pick, but it's a 6. What are you going to? Lanky runs a 4.3 as well. So you can never have too much speed. This defense was very slow last year. They've certainly fixed that, but I just all around A+ draft. I mean, back-to-back A+ drafts for the Steelers and Omar Khan. Really switching from the Kevin Colbert drafts where really there was a lot of duds in there. Really not a lot of drafts when he was late in his career to write home about. But last year, draft class got an A+ grade. Four rookies out of that class, the top 4 picks, all had very meaningful contributions for the Steelers. Same for the top 4 picks again as well. And certainly going in the right direction. That's my piece.
You gonna run through all of them, or you just doing Steelers only?
I was just well, do you want to? I can run through all of them if I'm just going to talk for the next 30 minutes. I was feeling maybe we go to you guys talk about the Jets and Cowboys.
I don't know.
I can go through the rest of my list real quick. What do you think, Gil?
Usually, we typically do one by one, just to kind of attempt to get everybody equal speaking time. Doesn't always work that way, but that's kind of the attempt there.
Here's how I'll do it. Steelers were my number 1 favorite class. So then, whoever and then I'll say my number 1 least favorite class as well, and then we'll move on to the next guy. So my least favorite class was the Denver Broncos. And I just think trading Bo Nix is going to set this franchise back for years. I mean, Bo Nix does nothing for you. He's not a first-round talented quarterback. The roster, as far as I can tell, is not great. You got some guys there, but you also got some no-names as well. I mean, they had a losing record with Russell Wilson. So do I think Bo Nix is going to be better than Russell Wilson? No, I don't think so. And he's almost as old as Russell Wilson. I know that's a hyperbole, but it's funny. So we'll see. But I'm looking at some of these guys: Jonah Ellis, Chris Abraham Drain, Audric Estime. I know that's one of Drew's guys. Nick Gargulio. Those are guys that are going to be up on slideshows on TikTok, of guys from 5 years ago that you forget because you're not really going to remember any of them. I think Troy Franklin sticks around. I think he was a steal early in the 4th, second or third pick of the 4th round. But rather than that, really don't like it. And the reach for Knicks, first-round quarterbacks make or break franchises. And then when you reach for one who I think has no business being up there, it's going to set them back for years to come. Sean Payton will get fired over this. They'll have to really build this team up 3 years from now. It's going to be bad. Feel bad if you're a Broncos fan.
The only smart pick was that Franklin pick. It was a steal there. And you know what? You're going with Bo Nix. That's who you drafted. So I really like when wide receiver or quarterbacks are paired with their college wide receivers, that's the only smart pick they made, I think, for a couple different reasons. I knew or I figured they would be the team to take Knicks or a quarterback there at 12 because they have nobody on the roster. Even they trade for Zach Wilson. Big whoop. They had nobody on the roster.
Bo Nix is no better than Zach Wilson, in my opinion.
That's going to be
I truly
the
believe
worst preseason training camp battle to watch. It is going to. You're going to have to wash out your eyes because it is going to make you rethink everything you know and love about football. It's going to be horrendous.
Zach Wilson has the better arm. That's a debatable fact. It's just Zach Wilson makes poor football decisions, and Bo Nix is just a check down merchant.
Zach Wilson's
it's not good
from here up. That's he's good from the shoulders down. It's from the shoulders up, and he's whatever. It's going to be ugly there in Denver. Drew?
My turn?
Yeah.
All right. So mine will be a little bit different because my favorite is not the Cowboys.
Real quick fun fact.
Okay.
I'm fairly confident that Zach Wilson Zach Wilson and Bo Nix are the same age. They're both 24. That's all.
I think Zach Wilson
do with that information what you want.
Zach Wilson turned 21 after he was drafted.
All right. Back to you, Drew. Sorry.
Cool. I'm going to hold off on talking about the Cowboys because they will appear in my list at some point. So stay tuned whether it's good or bad. But
that's what the business call a tease.
It's bait. Make you watch longer. Anyways, my favorite is probably it's probably the Bears. I like what the Bears did. It's
really like Bears.
It's really just the Bears' first two picks, and then the rest of it is whatever. I don't care because the first two picks are great. So obviously they've been doing some work to kind of build a team for the next guy after they completely sold on Justin Fields. Anyways, Darnell Mooney was his wide receiver one when he was a rookie. So, but for Caleb Williams, they went out and they already had DJ Moore. They went and got Keenan Allen, and then they go ahead and draft Caleb Williams, obviously, which can't really give the Bears any credit. Everyone knew that was the pick. It's not like they found some guy, some star, and we don't even know if any of these guys are going to be stars first and foremost, but we can project.
They
anyways
for it, so they get credit.
They take him. Yeah, they fleece the Panthers, and then you go and get Rome Odunze as well, who's top 3 wide receiver in the class, and in a loaded wide receiver class, top 3 is pretty good. So, it just a great situation for a young quarterback. Dylan, like you mentioned, how they acquired those picks kind of goes into it. It's one of those trades where one team kind of sets itself back and the other team, launches itself into a upper tier than what they would have been able to achieve on their own. So I think we're seeing that. I think, NFC North is pretty tough with the Lions and the Packers both being pretty good. So it'll still be tough for them, especially with a rookie quarterback anyways. I left a team off there that wasn't in the very good list, but
I was wondering how long it was going to take for that to get mentioned.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be able to do it.
But
I want to add though, Bears were my number 3 team on my top 3 list because I agree they had a really good draft, especially 1 and 2. And I just want to throw in there, they also got punter number 1, who's a weapon.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Torrey Taylor in the 4th. So let's not sleep on that. Let's not call the rest of their picks nobodies. They only made 3 more picks the rest of the draft, but still, Torrey Taylor, man, he's going to be a dog hunter. Punters are weapons.
Hey, Caleb Williams told that dude that he's not going to be punting very much. So we'll see how much we actually see of Torrey.
Yeah.
Probably not true, but
Torrey Taylor was a first-round pick for Cam. So, they got him in the 4th. That's a steal.
That did happen. Well, It was attempted at least. So Bears are my favorite. And then my least favorite is the Falcons. I think for obvious reasons. I think taking Michael Penix is an obvious mistake. Even when they try to explain it, they want the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers situation. Well, Kirk Cousins isn't Aaron Rodgers, and Penix isn't Jordan Love. They also took it in, probably the late 20s. It's not pick 8. And, it's just a completely different value.
Same age.
That's not good. That's not good. And so, I don't know. Yeah, if you let Love sit for 4 years, or if you let Penix sit for 4 years like Love sat for, he's going to be almost 30 by the time by the time he makes his first start, just about. So that was a mistake. And then their second round pick was a massive reach for Scooby-Doo Man. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name.
Rook or Hororo.
Yeah, just pretend like you're growling like a dog, and that's his last name. Complete reach. Like, I'm pretty sure Johnny Newton was still on the board, who was the best defensive tackle available, at least by many sources. I'm sure there was some other people available as well. I mean, you can even throw in Sweat, even if you wanted to. But maybe it's just me, but I did not know who this man was until they picked him. And I'm pretty sure – did they move up for him? I think they moved up a couple spots and grabbed him.
I think they might have.
And at that point, I was like, what are the Falcons doing? They literally have no clue what they're doing. Which, by the way, we saw last year when Mr. Inevitable got drafted to the Falcons, and that's because they don't know what they're doing. That one, worked out a little bit better for them, even though they decided never to use them, But anyways.
I think we need to, test that general manager's brain for CTE or something.
Isn't he new? Or is just the coach new?
Just the coach.
No, just the coach is new. He's been there for a while.
I think the GM, and Arthur Smith, I want to say came in together. I could be wrong. But the GM's been there for
It sounds right.
I want to say he might have made the Pitts pick. I don't know, though.
He drafted the quarterback for job security. He's going to be like, just wait. My quarterback's still, he's still developing. Just wait. Mm-hmm. So he's got, until Penix becomes a starter and then is a bust, he'll have a job.
And some of the arguments I heard for that was they were trying to talk about it, like defend it on Sports Talk Radio Monday. They're saying you're hoping you're good enough with Kirk Cousins to where you're never drafting that high again. So you got to take the quarterback now. No, you got to take something. If you think you're going to be that good with Kirk Cousins, you got to help Kirk Cousins out. You got to get him some defensive players or something. The other one I heard, too, was I wonder how comfortable the Falcons are with Kirk Cousins' injury. But then it's like, why'd you give him the big-ass contract if you weren't that comfortable with it?
Yeah. There's no good way to frame it. There's absolutely no good way to frame it. You can call it the Jordan Love. Jordan Love was drafted in the 20s, and he was like 20 years old. And then when he sat for 4 years, then he was 24. He was like – Penix already is 24. He's going to sit for 4 years. He's going to be nearly 30 years old, and he's got more injuries than Cousins does. Not, I don't think a lot of people were worried about Penix's injury history, but it's there. The two moves do not go together at all, and that is also why the Falcons were the second least favorite draft on my list. So.
And a lot of people were like, well, if you're Kirk Cousins, you got to be upset. If you're Michael Penix, you got to be pissed because you're going to a spot at 24 years old where the team is flat out hoping you do not see the field for most of your rookie contract, if any of it.
At least you don't have to show anyone that you're bad, though, yet. At least you can wait a few years until people are like, oh, you actually suck. That'll still be somewhat of a mystery unless something happens where he has to go out there and play. But so good and bad. Good because he can just kind of hide and sit on the bench and collect his large first-round quarterback contract, relatively large. for a rookie. So
Top 10
he'll be
contract. Yeah,
he'll be fine in that aspect. And then he gets to hide his skill for a little bit, and it won't be like Justin Fields where he had to play and he didn't perform up to expectations, and now he's didn't get his 5th year picked up and probably is never going to make huge money. Whereas Penix, let's just say Kirk plays for 4 years, and Penix actually does have to sit that long. You're in a Jordan Love situation where maybe someone's just going to take a flyer on your 5th year option or give you a contract close to what the 5th year option would be just because you're young and unproven still. So that doesn't make the Falcons pick. And he won't, 29, 20, 28, 29, whatever it'll be at the time. So no, the Falcons pick is terrible. Penix should not have gone any higher than, I don't know if the Broncos would have taken him instead of Nix if he was there. Maybe. But realistically, him and Nix and Penix should have been second-round quarterbacks. A lot of these quarterbacks should have been second-round quarterbacks. Oh, well. Not my problem.
Nope. Nope, not our problem. Well, not the 3 of our problem.
Yeah. One of us, that's their problem.
One of us did get free money from it. The draft I didn't really care for. I hated the Falcons draft. I didn't like the Titans. I thought J.C. Latham there at 7 was a bit of a reach, especially when you had guys like Olu Fashanu, Troy Fontenelle, Felice Fuaga. I thought those guys were a little bit better than Latham. Devondre Sweat there in the 2nd round. I don't know.
That was a reach.
I thought that was a massive reach. And then I don't think they filled needs. They got a linebacker in the 4th, some corners. They didn't have it was a lot of day 3 picks, which, I mean, they're dart throws anyways. But your first couple picks, I just thought they were reaches, and they just didn't seem to make sense, especially with the guys that were on the board at the time.
I like the thought of O-tackle. It's just it does feel like they picked the wrong one.
Right.
I don't think anybody had
J.C.
J.C. Latham going
player
first.
Was a reach.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of
J.C. Latham was getting popular going to the Chargers, though.
To the Chargers, yeah. There was a lot of the day before. There was a lot of J.C. Latham to the Chargers, which that
probably
was
just smoke like everything else. But still, I don't know. I mean, everyone's got their favorite for whatever reason, and works this way every year, especially with tackles. You'll have some tackles are better at run blocking. Some are just big, crazy bodies. Some are more athletic. So it just depends.
Especially in a year where there's so many first-round tackles. It felt like abnormally high this year with a lot of different flavors. I guess that was theirs.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's usually, like Drew and you guys or you both were saying, it's just whatever flavor you prefer at tackle. I just thought Latham, I thought he was more late first round, not early first. I didn't think he was worth the top 10 pick. But, hey, who knows? I could be dead wrong. I was been preaching throughout the entire process. Titans, offensive lineman that they're going to take is going to be coached by the best offensive line coach in the NFL. So I'm going to trust that. I just, looking at the players they got, I don't think they filled a lot of needs, or at least smart. I don't think they improved. They upgraded at tackle, but everywhere else, I just don't see much improvement for them. And in a division where you've got, say what you want about Trevor Lawrence, he's still a good quarterback. He's not great. Still some overhype. But you've got C.J. Stroud in the Texans. You've got the Colts, which I think are going to be rising and becoming a major threat. So if you're the Titans, it's what'd you do to really improve your team and improve your spot in the division? I don't really think they did much of anything when it comes to that. And speaking of tackle, I did want to touch on the guy the Fontenot that you guys got. That was a guy that, I thought was going to be mocked or was mocked to the Jets at 10. So that was a huge steal for you guys. I don't want to put too much hype into the Steelers again this year. I learned from last year, especially during the preseason, to not do that shit again. So I'm going to pump the brakes.
It's not the same. Last year's draft class was hyped up a lot, and it turned out to be really good. That's fine.
Yeah, but
the preseason stuff is a different story.
Anyways, I did really like what you guys did. You guys filled offensive line needs. Frazier, who you got in the second round, was a guy that we were mocking into the first on our drafts. Roman Wilson there at 84. I like the South Dakota kid. I thought he was a guy I wanted the Jets to take. Didn't work out. There was just a lot of good about your draft. And the fact that you guys are building it up front, it's like you guys are finally, turning the page a little bit there.
Yeah,
It was interesting to see the philosophy because I wasn't sure if you guys were going to go DB at some point. You guys did until like day 3, but you guys really focused on
our last pick
offense, and that's fine. It's an offensive-driven league, and it was interesting to see that draft philosophy play out for you guys.
First time they've gone back-to-back offensive linemen in the first round in like a very long time. So it just shows kind of how much they've. Yeah.
One of my favorite Jets draft classes was 2005 or 6, where they drafted DeBrickashaw Ferguson, who is the name that helped create the Key and Peele sketch, because that's a legit name, and they couldn't believe that was a legit name. And then they took Nick Mangold. And those two helped solidify the Jets' offensive front for the 2000 into those AFC Championship game runs where they were going back-to-back. If you build up front, you hit those picks right. I mean, that's solid. It was criticized at the time.
I think the
Jets taking tackle and center, but it worked. They were staples.
I think the statistic is going back-to-back first-round picks. So we went Broderick Jones last year and then a tackle this year. But that's also, I'm sure, going tackle in the first and then, another O-line in the second. I'm sure both of them are statistics.
The Cowboys did that like multiple years, like where they drafted Travis Frederick. I want to say Tyron Smith might have been in there. Zach Martin.
And it worked.
You guys went offensive line like every year in the first round, and you guys built a wall up front.
And that's why it was so good for so long, I'd argue. So
a lot of top talent invested in that offensive line.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotta hit your picks, though.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, you do. All right. I think it's circled back around to me. So like I said, my first team was the Steelers. My third team was the Bears for my favorite classes. So I'll hit my second, but then I also have some honorable mentions we can circle back to later. My second favorite class was the Chargers. I think they got a lot of criticism for taking tackle at 5, but kind of like he's mentioned, taking that offensive lineman early is from the trenches, and they got a really good tackle at it. They got the number 1, on their board at least, which was fine. The criticism was they don't have any wide receivers. Well, they ended up drafting 3 of them. The first one being Ladd McConkey. I think he's going to be great on the Chargers. I really do. I think he is going to do a lot of work over the middle. You got not as main to be seen, but regardless, I think Ladd McConkey is going to do a lot of work over the middle for them. He's going to be a weapon. And then they come around at the back end and they go Brendan Rice, who I think fell on a lot of people's mocks. People had him going earlier, middle rounds, day 2 maybe, but he went really late on day 3. I think he's going to end up being a good wide receiver in the NFL. Obviously he's a 6th or 7th round pick, so he's got some sort of limitations apparently. But, a guy that I think has a chance. And then Cornelius Johnson, I think that – isn't he a Michigan wide receiver? Pretty sure he is. Jim Harbaugh gets one of his guys. So, even though they didn't get that wide receiver early, they ended up getting – and I think will still end up being very good in Ladd McConkey, who I think should have went in the first round to the Chiefs. Chiefs obviously ended up trading up and getting a speedster there. And then some other wide receivers going in that first round that I'll talk about here shortly. But with that, Junior Colson, good linebacker. Cam Hart, corner from Notre Dame, who I think they got at a pretty good time. He was kind of falling on that day 3, and they snagged him as well. So I think overall the Chargers had a nice draft, and even though it wasn't as popular at the top, I still think it was decent. So it was my number 3.
I did really like what they did. Coming
I
back
thought your Bears were number 3.
I'm sorry, Chargers are number 2. Bears are my number 3. Yes, you're right. Thank you, Mr. Fact Check.
You're welcome. Yeah, I like it.
So it was a good class. Jim Harbaugh's first in the building. Obviously, he knew a lot of college players. Having been in the mention that head coaches get a late jump on the scouting process because they're busy in the NFL all year. But Harbaugh was in it. Harbaugh was living it. He knew a lot of these players and had some history with them. So a good draft there. My third he was doing both of those. Anyway, my 30. I hope this comes out okay. There's some lag talking, so I hope it works out. But my third least, so our Broncos are my least, Falcons number 2. My third is the 49ers. Really didn't like it, didn't get it. Ricky Pearsall in the first specifically, that felt like such a reach. I know CJ Stroud when it happened was like, oh, I love Ricky Pearsall, but like, I just don't think so. And maybe it was because there's this trade rumors circling for Ayuk and Debo, but even still, I don't get that pick. Ricky Pearsall, I think he was a second round talent, day 2 guy, for sure. They take him late in that first round. Receivers, he's like not playing that much. I mean, he'll be the wide receiver 3 maybe, but I just, I got my convictions or reservations about that. And then reading the rest of this list, Renardo Green, who, Dominic Pooney, who, Malik Mustafa, who, Isaac Garendo, he's a fast running back, right? I think he's going to be okay. You already got CMC and you got Elijah Mitchell as a decent wide receiver too. So why? Jacob Coing, wide receiver, Garrett Kingston, guard, Tatum Bethune, just a bunch of just all over the place. So you also have Juwan Jennings. So drafting 2 wide receivers when you already have a lot of wide receivers on your team. Granted, I know some of them may not be on the team in the future, so I get that part, but I just don't like the actual selections that were made with who was on the board. Just didn't like the 49ers draft.
No, and that started a run of 4 straight wide
49ers are not good at drafting.
No.
That's
why
true.
They trade for their players. That's why Christian McCaffrey.
Who's one of their stars that they've drafted? You can go ahead and count Purdy. Yeah, they got lucky. Saved them because they would have been crucified for trading for Trey Lance if Purdy didn't save them. George Kittle, I think they drafted.
I'm pretty sure they drafted. I know Kyle Shanahan drafted Debo because Saleh was there when they drafted Debo.
But Trent Williams, they traded for. McCaffrey, they traded for. They drafted
Their entire
Bosa.
defense, basically.
They drafted Bosa, but that one was pretty obvious. He was like pick 2 or 3 or something.
They drafted Ayuk too, but
Did okay.
A lot of that defense, though, they traded for CMC. Obviously, they traded for. They signed a whole bunch in free agency. Like they got Javon Hargrave on a huge deal. Did they draft Fred Warner?
Yeah, I think so.
That was a solid.
That's obviously a fantastic pick. He was a 3rd round pick in 2018. So, they for as good as they've hit on some guys, they've also been absolutely terrible on some other spots. And I think this is going to turn out to be a draft that's more terrible than good.
I tend to agree with that. Drew.
Cool. I've been trying to decide who I want my second favorite to be, and I think it's going to be. I think I'll lay out my list and throw out some honorable mentions, maybe at the end. That way, I don't steal anything from you, Gil. I'm just going to finish off my list real quick. It's going to be easier that way, so I can mention the other stuff later. So number 2 is I'm going to give it to the Commanders.
Really?
They had a pretty solid draft. Most of that is because of the number of picks they had. I don't love Jaden Daniels, especially at 2, but they needed a quarterback. It is what it is. A lot of people started to, kind of fall off on May. He didn't have the season that everyone thought he was going to, so I can't necessarily blame you for picking the Heisman winner, even though I don't think that's what I would have done, but still. But then you hit, in the second round, and Johnny Newton, which everyone calls him Johnny. Name's Jerzon. Johnny's definitely easier to say than Jerzon. So I'm going to stick with Johnny. That's a great pick in the second round, considering he was probably a first-round grade for a lot of teams, first-round talent at least. So that's a great pick. And then they come back and get Mike Sanderstill in the second round. And then a tight end, which I wasn't familiar with myself, but after the pick was made, I saw a little bit about him. And his name is, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Ben Sinnott. Sinnott, something like that. Pretty athletic guy. Not a lot of hype. Some consider him the second best tight end in the class, which is pretty good considering, Bowers is obviously one. And there wasn't really much competition for him there, but I think it's going to be a solid class, especially Johnny Newton and Sanders still. Obviously, quarterback is very questionable. And it's not like they have a mentor for him either. They've got Marcus Mariota. Who, do not let Mariota teach him anything. Do not let him teach him anything. So, there was definitely a few teams that I was considering putting there. But I like the Commanders. And at first I didn't really like it. And obviously the later stuff, it's basically a guess. They got Luke McCaffrey, which if you're going to draft a name, draft that name. Same with Rice. Certain families you probably good at taking a risk with. But overall, pretty good draft. And just the number of guys, like those 3 guys in the same draft class, if other teams got one of those guys, you'd bump their grade up, a level. So good draft from the Commanders. I said I'm going to finish off, and that's because the Cowboys are third. Sneaky. It's not flashy.
It never is.
And listen, well, sometimes, when CeeDee Lamb falls in your lap, you get to be flashy a little bit, or Micah Parsons. But sometimes you gotta go and do the dirty work. You gotta go get the big uglies. And that's what we did. So we got Tyler Guyton, who, if you've seen my mock video, I was not excited about him necessarily. That's because I really thought Morgan could be there. Or not Morgan. Morgan, I'll touch on him in a second. Mims. I thought Mims could be there. I thought Barton could be there, and he was, but we ended up trading back, which worked out. I actually do like it, the trade back. But I thought Barton would be there. I thought Powers Johnson could be an option, and he was available as well. But you go ahead and you take Guyton, and you get a tackle. And the reason that I'm fine with it is because I thought an option for us could be if we go like Barton or Powers Johnson the first, and then maybe if we really needed tackle as well, get Jordan Morgan in the second, because most people had him kind of floating in the second round, but the Packers actually ended up taking him in the first. So that was kind of off the table. And really I'm not even sure what tackle prospects were left after, we took Guyton. There were some second round guys who were – yeah, there were some second round guys who are even bigger projects than Guyton himself. So I'm fine with it. And really the pick allows us to leave Tyler Smith at guard, which is best for him. So But then you go ahead and in the second round, this one surprised me. I thought for sure linebacker was coming. I think if I remember correctly, Edgerrin Cooper had already been taken, which is one of the guys I was looking at for linebacker. I think he went to the Packers. And so I thought Junior Colson was going to be the pick. But it turned out we go ahead and grab Marshawn Nealand out of Western Michigan, which he's listening to some Cowboys podcasts in the last few days. He's the DeMarcus Lawrence replacement. Same kind of build, same kind of play style, not flashy with the sacks, but athletic, not afraid to go after the run, big, strong guys. So DeMarcus Lawrence, this is his last year on his contract. He's getting pretty old. That's probably the exit strategy for him. Unfortunately, love D-Law, but, eventually you get to a point, you get too old and too expensive. So that's probably a replacement for him, and obviously didn't have a ton of production in college, but had the build, the talent, pretty raw, but still, I think it's a good shot to take there. And the Cowboys love using the second round pick as just taking a shot on some players, and a lot of times it doesn't work out, but sometimes it does. I think DeMarcus Lawrence himself was a second round pick that we had made in, I think, 2014. I think so. Trayvon Diggs, and there's some others that definitely didn't work out, like Kelvin Joseph a few years ago. We like to take a shot, and I think it's sometimes you got to do it, and if it works, everyone's going to be like, wow, you guys are geniuses. If it doesn't, it's going to look terrible, but you got to take a risk sometimes. I'm not mad at it. But then to round it out is Cooper Beebe, who we got with the trade back with the Lions. And if he can make the transition to center, which I think he can, that's quite the group of maulers with Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, and Zach Martin there in the middle. And when you're in a division with Fletcher Cox just retired, but Jordan Davis.
You still got Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter over there.
Yeah, Jalen Carter.
Who's the Commanders got? That big dude from
Payne.
Daron Payne.
Yeah.
Jonathan Allen.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
And on the Giants, Dexter Lawrence. And so there's some beef in the NFC East trenches. So you got to add your own beef. And I think if Cooper Beebe can be a center, the interior of the line is going to be nasty. If he can't, same kind of boat as DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Martin's getting old. Last year on his contract, maybe. If not, it's coming up soon. And even still, as much as it sucks to say, he is not playing anywhere near his best. Obviously, he's old now. The line takes a toll on you. But the succession plan has to be at least thought of or planned out a little bit. So if he can't, for whatever reason, make the switch to center, it's going to be unfortunate for this year, but for the years to come, he'll be a good replacement. So I really like the Cowboys draft, and obviously seeing some of the later guys, they're flyers. I have hopes for the corner that we took in the 5th with Kalen Carson. I have hopes for our 7th round pick, actually, defensive tackle is just plug-in holes defensive tackle, which is what we need. But obviously, it's hard to say whether those are good picks or not, because most picks after round 3 you're lucky if they even make practice squad. So we'll see what happens with those. And as I was looking through the drafts, there's not a lot of other drafts that I love that I was like, yeah, this is way better than the Cowboys. Like a lot of them were like, yeah, they had one great pick or 2 good picks, but I really like the Cowboys' 3 picks. They might not be the best of all time. It's not, franchise-altering picks, but They're good. They're just as good as anyone else's, I think. At least most other drafts. So I'll do my honorable
this was a
mentions at the end.
This was a very top-heavy draft. I mean, Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl was saying like it was a record number of juniors that didn't go for the draft, like they were all going for a senior season and getting NIL money and this, that, and the other. So day 3 was really scattershot. I mean, once you got to those rounds, it's like these are just guys. We'll see what happens to them. I agree. The money's at where that bread and butter comes from, and if you can nail 3-4 picks, you're okay. And you know, I think you're right. Like with Tyler Guyton on the board, it was funny because you didn't want it to happen live at the time, but like looking at the board, who else were you going to take? I mean, obviously took Grant Barton and not traded down, but like at that point, it's like they're all gone. That you had to get him. He's the last one left. So it's fine. You know, you get a big tackle and you see if he works out. And then, you know, Cooper Beebe, just like McCormick, it's a very similar to the Steelers, and we'll, you know, see if that guy turns into it. And, you know, you hope Marshawn Nealon can reach his intermaction and get a little bit of Max Crosby or something. I don't know.
Sure.
We'll see and go from there. So I don't hate the Cowboys pick all in all. And like you said, very similar vibes this year in totality for a lot of teams.
No, it was definitely top heavy. So I'm going to give one that I liked, a touch on the Jets, and then one. I like the Eagles because I think the Eagles have a tendency to nail the draft almost every year. Seems like, yes, of course, I love the Quinion Mitchell pick. That was phenomenal. I thought him falling to 22 was a steal. And then they take one of the other best corners in the draft, in Cooper DeJean. So now they have an outside guy. They have your slot corner, that's a starting corner. You know, that third corner, that nickel back, that's a starting corner. And then you have Darius Slay on the other side, yes, he's digressing, but that's a good guy for Quinion Mitchell to learn from. And going to that system, Vic Fangio being there, they gave Vic Fangio pieces. One of the biggest weaknesses for the Eagles this year was their pass defense. Their top 2 picks were corners. They added an edge in Jalix Hunt. And then they added linebacker later on and Jeremiah Trotter. A couple other offensive weapons like Will Shipley, Smith, but like, what's that?
I said I really like Jeremiah Trotter. He was a good pick,
especially there
in the 5th.
I thought, what the Eagles do every year is just they just nail the draft. It's one thing that Howie Roseman's really good at, and I thought he had another good draft this year.
We'll see.
We will see. I did say I'm going to touch on the Jets draft. Class. I'm not going to go that far, but I did like what they did. The way the board fell, they were trying to jump the Bears for Rome Odunze. They just couldn't make the different clips that have come out, the different reports that have come out. It's been clear that they wanted Rome Odunze, and then when the Bears took him, it was like, all right, we'll go steal the Vikings lunch money. We'll move down 1 pick and take the guy that we were going to take at 10. I like Fashanu. He was a guy that I want to say I mentioned a while ago, before Tyron Smith was signed, because he's a pure left tackle. They went the right tackle route where they tried maybe moving him to left tackle because he's versatile, has a high ceiling, and Mekhi Becton didn't work. Take a pure left tackle in Fashanu, and you're set for the next, you're hoping decade. And him learning from Tyron Smith is going to be smart. It's going to be phenomenal for him. And some people have hated the pick because, he's not going to play. Let's be honest. Offensive linemen get hurt. I'm not praying for it to happen. I don't want it to happen. But there's a chance that Tyron Smith might miss a couple games. To think that Tyron Smith is going to play 17-plus games. Now, if that happens, that's really good news for the Jets. because it probably means that things are going well. But there's a chance that he's going to miss a few. Or Morgan Moses on the right side. So now you have your first round draft pick that can move, hopefully. I think he learned right tackle a little bit. I think he trained there, so he could do some right tackle if he needs to fill in. And Smith is only here for a year. Like, his contract's a year. So Fashanu, next year and on, hopefully, is going to be a solid guy on the left side. I know I've been brocked up for Bowers, but Fashanu was a smart pick. With the top 3 receivers gone, it just made more sense. Bowers was a luxury the Jets weren't ready to afford yet. And I wish we were in a spot where Bowers would have been a smart pick or a good pick for us. It wasn't as much as my gut knew that Bowers was not the right pick, but my heart wanted Bowers. I'm okay with it. Fashanu's going to be a really good left tackle whenever he does play. And then I also liked the wide receiver. I really like Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. And I think he's going to come in. The Jets still need wide receivers. And even after Malachi Corley was drafted, they still need another wide receiver. Because Mike Williams might not be there. He may not be there week 1. So then you're walking out with Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley, and Alan Lazard. Anything you can do to keep Alan Lazard off the field, I'm here for. And with how versatile, he's the quote-unquote Yak King. So absolutely love adding Corley to the draft or to this team and just hopefully improving from there. Braylon Allen was an interesting pick. They needed kind of that short yardage guy.
Stole all the running backs from the Cowboys for no reason.
Yeah. Braylon Allen made sense. As much as I like Isaiah Davis, that did not make sense. I did not think Isaiah Davis made sense for the Jets. Now, the thing that has come up in questions is, well, he was a 5th-round pick. They usually let the special teams coordinator make a pick, so maybe it was a special teams thing. But Davis didn't play a lot of special teams in college. And Davis and Allen are a similar style of back. So maybe you take both, hope one of them works. But I thought the running back room of Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Izzy Abanikanda was going to be good enough to help win games. And maybe add a veteran because, guys get hurt. But adding 2 running backs, that's my biggest question mark, my biggest hesitation with this entire draft, is that they spend another 5th-round pick. They drafted more running backs than offensive linemen. And that shocks me. With how much the Jets have needed to invest in offensive line. And I was listening to one of the Jets guys talk about it, where they have their starting 5. They have Fashanu. They have another tackle they drafted last year, an interior guy. Hello.
Sorry. We'll see if this works. It may not. It might. Had some technical difficulties. Right. Keep going.
But pretty much, the Jets just may not have enough room for another offensive lineman or so right now. But the fact that they took more running backs than offensive linemen blows my mind. I really like Jordan Travis. That was a guy that I mocked to the Jets. I think that's a good 5th round. You take a shot at a guy that healthy probably would have been taken day 2. I'm cool with that. And I also like the whole you take a quarterback every year, the whole Bill Parcells model. The corner, Quantez Stiggers, cool story for him. Coming out of the CFL. Now, for reasons why he was at the CFL, not necessarily cool, but kind of a neat story with him coming from the CFL and getting drafted. And he has a chance to make the team. The Jets are going to need DJ Reed's not going to be here forever. So that's cool. And then, Mr. Irrelevant, no, it's a safety out of Alabama. Okay. I thought the Jets did okay. I was fine with it. But that's my little 5-10 minute Jets ramble. The last thing I'll say, I said I was going to give a honorable mention to the Raiders for a good draft.
That was going to be one of mine.
Like what the Raiders did. That's what I wasn't sure. I just wanted to make the one honorable mention because I wasn't sure how many more we were going to have the same.
Yeah, I like the Raiders, Brock Bowers and Jackson Powers Johnson, obviously the main focal point of that draft. Good picks. I was not expecting Bowers to go to Raiders, mostly because I kind of figured the Jets might snag him. But Bowers and Michael Mayer is quite the tight end duo there. I think it should work out pretty well, especially because
yeah,
and you'll probably have Bowers lining up in the slot anyways a lot of the time. So you'll have Mayer being your actual tight end, and then Bowers will be a blend between tight end and wide receiver. So that'll be interesting. Interesting dynamic for sure. And then obviously Jackson Powers Johnson, who Dylan and I have both talked about quite often. So hopefully, finally the Raiders can have a good draft. Almost all of their previous drafts have been terrible. So fingers crossed that this is, a good one.
Let's just do like quick honorable mentions, and then do we have anybody?
I'm gonna go quick. I'm gonna go quick here because I have no idea if this has ruined the video with my echo or not. High thieves. So, honorable mentions: Patriots, landing Drake May, QB2. I think we all had. I think that's a great pick at 3. Jalen Polk, I really liked him as a wide receiver prospect. Same with Javon Baker. And then Joe Milton, whether he turns into a cool backup to have in the future for Hail Marys or if he's a tight end in the future. Athletic dude, we'll see. I like the Jets for reasons, Gil, that you mentioned already. I like the Cardinals for the simple fact is that their draft class was huge, and a bunch of them were early, and you got Marv, generational wide receivers. So I really like the Cards draft. That's a lot of darts at the dartboard to see if you can hit and try to build up that roster back a little bit. And then the Saints. The Saints get a good tackle prospect. The Saints get Spencer Rattler, which I really like for them, being that a team that, Derek Carr's not your future. And you're not getting one of those top 6 quarterbacks because you're not drafting one in the top 12 because you're not nuts. Kool-Aid McKinstry as well. So, I really like those couple of picks there. I think Spencer Rattler might start for them in a few years, and he was talented. So we'll see what he turns into being. And then an honorable mention for being terrible is the Panthers. Xavier Legette in the first liked him, but I don't know if I liked him that much.
I like their players aren't necessarily terrible; they're just reaches at where they were drafted.
Yeah, across the board there. So, Jonathan Brooks felt early. Trevin Wallace is okay, and then a bunch of people you may never hear it from ever again. So, just felt like for a team that has so many holes, they really didn't get a lot to help that. So, that's it though. I'm gonna close this because it may break everything.
Thanks.
All right.
I'll hit a couple. I'm gonna start with the Lions. Double dipping corner, kind of like the Eagles, but they go Terrion Arnold and Rakestraw out of Missouri, which were 2 of the top. Obviously, Terrion Arnold was top 2, and Rakestraw is probably top 5 or so. Did you get the picture? That was a good freeze frame. Nice.
Justin,
that was a good freeze frame. But yeah, Lions double dip at a need. You can't hate it. And even though they were needs, Terrion Arnold, people talk about all the time, like need versus best play available. Well, Terrion Arnold and for the Eagles as well, with Quinion Mitchell, those were both needs and best player available for both teams. So can't fault them there. They move up for, I think they gained – or they didn't gain anything. They traded with the Cowboys for a 3rd and a future I think we gave him a future 7th or something like that. There may have been a pick swap somewhere in the 6s as well. Anyways, it wasn't a ton.
That's what you do in Madden when you have that much left.
Yeah.
The phrase accepted.
Future 7 is to, yeah. So the trade up to get him was not too costly, and it's for a fantastic player who also fits a need. So just good across the board. And like I said, double dip because their defensive backs, just like the Eagles actually, was terrible last year. And that's a lot of the reason why, they struggled against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game and a lot of games throughout the season. So definitely plug some holes there. And then I'm going to do a second team, and that's the Colts with A.D. Mitchell and Latu, who, again, the draft is a lot of taking a chance on a guy. And Latu, without injury history, is arguably the best defensive end edge prospect in the draft. And so you take a chance on a guy who, if he's healthy and stays healthy, he could be one of the better defensive players in the draft. He could be a defensive rookie of the year candidate. We'll see what happens. But and then A.D. Mitchell, who what pick did they get him with? Let me take a look here. Where's it at? Oops, it's Jags.
52.
They had him at pick 52, which is much farther. I didn't think he was going to make it out of the end of the first round, especially with the Bills, who, let me just give a negative shout out to the Bills. I didn't like what the Bills were doing, especially trading with the Chiefs. Like, did you not learn your lesson the first time? Anyways, I like the Colts' first 2 picks, Latu and A.D. Mitchell, both guys who kind of had bad things coming out about him. One was injury, obviously. The other was A.D. Mitchell supposedly has a lot of anger issues or attitude issues as a result of his supposedly he's diabetic, which with his swings in blood sugar, it can make him angry or difficult to.
You see the Colts
work with.
GM that was that's some BS takes that
yeah.
He was the same person that was defending C.J. Stroud last year too.
Yeah.
For all the.
I think it's kind of funny because good on you for defending that, but also you benefited from it. So I don't know,
yeah.
But
that's why I mentioned the C.J. Stroud thing too, because it's it shows some consistency, I guess.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, because obviously they didn't benefit from that. They're actually getting
no.
They're getting beat up from that. So that is good. And I saw a video of him, laughing about Latu falling to them because he's some people thought of him as the best edge in the draft. So we'll see. Honorable mention status. The rest of it. Oh, I forgot one. There was one that stood out to me as well. Is Tanner Bortolini, the center out of Wisconsin, in the 4th. He was a guy I was watching, keeping my eye on. With the Cowboys not having a 4th pick, it was kind of a long shot. So I think he'll be good. And you really can't go wrong with drafting offensive line, especially interior guys from Big Ten schools, specifically that Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa area of the country. You get some good offensive linemen coming out of there. So if you're going to take a shot on a guy, take a shot on one of those. So good pick. Good pick from the Colts.
They'll have no problem going back home and just chopping down trees because they're bored as hell.
Yeah, chopping down trees and throwing hay bales around just for fun.
Yeah. The one last thing I wanted, honorable mention, bad draft. I did not like what the Cleveland Browns did. Granted, they didn't have a first-round draft pick, but their first pick was Mike Hall Jr. Questionable.
Yeah.
And then Zach Zinter. I thought he went a little early. Zach Zinter, when healthy.
I don't hate it though.
Because I did the same thing last year with Jawan Jones. where they took a risk on a guy that nobody else really wanted to. It paid off for them, but still, I thought center was a little high. And then they just didn't have enough for me to really be thrilled with what the Browns did. That was the one other, like, I really didn't care for the Browns. I thought, nothing stands out for them. And maybe that's a good thing that nothing stands out for Cleveland.
No, I don't think it is a good thing, because that means they sold all their picks for a questionable person. But
thank you for keeping it PG there. I was worried. It was starting. I was worried about where that was going. But yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to? We got some honorable mentions in.
No, and I think Dylan kind of touched on it, and it especially going back through and looking at these drafts, like the back half, day 3, even 4th round or the 3rd round, there's a lot of kind of, I don't want to say no names, but
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's just recency bias, but it just feels like it was definitely top heavy. I saw the same thing that Dylan saw about guys, especially those kind of guys, are staying in school for the NIL. They're probably not getting top of the line NIL deals, but they're not getting top of the line NFL money either. And so that makes sense. And I'm not sure if I can't imagine that'll be a phase. Like, I saw someone say it'll be fine next year, but I'm not sure why that would be. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Overall, I think that the draft and the picks that were made, there wasn't a ton of surprises, and there wasn't any big trades either. There were trades, but there wasn't anything crazy. Obviously, the Penix pick was a surprise, I would say.
That was the first real surprise. Like, that was the first real surprise. Like, the Titans going offensive tackle was not a surprise.
No.
The Chargers staying there, it was like 50-50 if the Chargers were going to stay.
And even the Titans pick, like, okay, J.C. Latham could be a surprise, but you knew they were going tackle. Whichever one they picked, like, okay, a little bit of surprise, but it wasn't anything crazy. Like, if the Titans picked quarterback, that would have been like, whoa, what the heck's going on? Like the Falcons. But, there wasn't really anything crazy other than, a couple guys. Obviously, the quarterbacks all going in the top 10. It was crazy, even though you were telling us they were going to. But and then some of the guys falling out of the first round, like Dijon and A.D. Mitchell. That's kind of a surprise, but still.
But all right, so after the Broncos take Knicks, Bowers to the Raiders. Kind of a surprise. It just wasn't rumored, but I still don't hate it. And then Saints with Fuaga. I mean, I never know what to expect from the Saints, but he was probably the best offensive lineman on the board at the time. The Colts, the fact that a defensive player fell this far, or this was where the first defensive player was taken, was a surprise. Byron Murphy to the Seahawks. I'm pretty sure we mocked that. I'm pretty sure that was in one.
At least once, probably. Yeah.
The Vikings getting Dallas Turner makes sense. It's just a lot, like you said, a lot of these just make sense. It's more the surprises, if anything, is that certain players fell as far as they did, but that's because, quarterbacks were so top heavy. Like Quinyon Mitchell falling to 22, which is weird for me to say that he fell to 22, but he was rumored around top 10. That's. You mentioned Cooper Dijon. I never know how to say that one correctly. Though when you get to the back of the first round, beginning of the second round, the order that those receivers went in, Pearsall, Leggett, Coleman, McConkey, in that order, kinda.
Pearsall was a surprise for me, but still, it's not blow your socks off surprise necessarily, and there wasn't There wasn't an A.J. Brown trade, even though there was a lot of rumors with Ayuk and Debo and T. Higgins. And, there's some guys available. And I really thought that someone was going to make a move. And, they still might, but, it didn't happen during the draft.
the only draft day moves that I saw was day 3 when the Jets traded John Franklin Myers to the Broncos.
Oh yeah.
And that wasn't even 4 draft picks in this year's class. So I don't even. It just happened during the draft. Like, it doesn't even have any impact on. So, like, there was no player picks or player trades that I can really remember. And we probably say this where there's a lot of hype heading into the draft every year, and then it just doesn't. But I feel like we did miss out on, outside of Penix, that holy crap moment. Which I will say, when Penix was drafted, so Cam, around, so Neighbors, no, because I messaged, like, this dude's going to the bathroom. He's going to miss the Vikings pick. After the Titans make their pick, he leaves. And then Penix makes the pick, or the pick's Penix. And he runs up to me. He's like, no way they took Penix. And then he goes back to try finding a pisser. Like, that's how in shock everybody was that he went, came back, and then went again. And that dude did almost miss it. And I would have been so irritated because we would not have, I would not have gotten that live reaction.
I thought he was going to miss it on purpose.
I was really getting worried that he was going to miss it on purpose. I'm texting him, like, dude, the Jets just traded with the Vikings. Get your ass back here. Get back here. And you know what? We got a huge TikTok video from that. If you haven't checked that out already, go make sure you go watch it, like it, share it with everybody at Party Chat Sports. We've got a couple good ones on there. Cam reaction, not just to the Vikings drafting J.J. McCarthy, but also when the Patriots drafted Drake May, because that's when he realized, like, oh no, this is where McCarthy's going to be taken. He also got out, talked to a couple different people. One of those little interviews is up on TikTok as well. So make sure you check that out at Party Chat Sports. Before we sign off, I would just like to say, I think I've earned the title as the biggest hater just from those TikToks alone.
Yeah, you're up there for sure.
I earned some hate cred for that. But if you haven't, again, go follow us at Party Chat Sports on TikTok. I'm not just tooting our own horn over here. They're hilarious. Like, my favorite part of that was everybody in the circle, like, laughing at Cam because he's sitting on the curb with his hand.
You gotta go see it. Gotta go see it.
Yeah, you gotta go see what I'm talking about at Party Chat Sports. You can keep up to date with everything we're doing at Party Chat Sports on Twitter. This video will be up on YouTube. Also, go listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever, XYZ. But just make sure you follow everything at Party Chat Sports. We'll be back next week. We're not sure what we're going to do yet. I'm not going to lie. Because
sad we're ending.
Yep, I know. I'm sad we're ending too. But we'll be back at some point with some more content. Draft season's over, so that's kind of sad. But until next time, follow at Party Chat Sports. Have a good one.
Peace.